I always give extra marks to that person who is talking about learning and development in the beginning itself. It speaks about that person wants to grow with us. I believe this is one of the best questions. It's going to be one of the best questions of this podcast. Yeah, Raghav, one question which is overrated and cliche as well, that is, tell me about yourself. So, what you have, display that only. Please do not try to fake any knowledge, any skill, any competency, because outsmarting an interviewer is not possible.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Weekday Show. I'm your host, Amit Singh, founder and CEO of Weekday, a hiring marketplace where job seekers can 8x their chances of finding their perfect job, and recruiters can supercharge their productivity by accessing the largest database of talent in the country. We have 80% of white-collar workforce of India on our platform. Check out Weekday at weekday.works. Happy to present to you the Weekday Show, where recruitment leaders share actionable insights and answer the most common hiring FAQs, and explore the hiring process from both sides, and dissect real-life interview scenarios.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Weekday Show. I'm your host for today, Raghav, and I lead growth at Weekday. And I'm super excited to be joined by a very special guest today. Today's guest is one who's been wearing many hats for the last 25 years, and he continues to do so. He's currently the group head of talent development at Uno Minda, one of the largest auto component manufacturers in the world, which employs 35,000 people across 7 countries. He's had a wonderful 25-year career where he's worked at a variety of organizations. But what I find super interesting about Kulveer is that he started his career as a chemist at Asian Paints. Kulveer, now that I've given away the name, is also a life coach, and he's also a visiting faculty member at elite MBA institutions in India like MDI Gurgaon, as well as a bunch of IIMs. So we'll double click on all of this through the course of today's podcast. But let me take a moment to welcome Kulveer to the show. Welcome, Kulveer.
Thank you very much, Raghav. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you very much for calling your podcast.
We'll get started right away. We don't want to waste your time.
Sure.
So I'll just set up the show. So today we're going to have 3 segments. We'll start with a very quick rapid fire. That'll have some fun questions where we'd love to get your take on them. We'll move on to a deep dive where we'll talk specifically about your journey, and we'll try and get some takeaways for our audience today. And we'll end with another fun segment that we call Hire or Pass, where we'll give you some hypothetical or perhaps real life interview scenarios, and we'd love to know what you think of those.
Interesting.
Sounds
interesting. Yeah, very interesting structure you have got, Raghav.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Perfect. Before we jump into it, I'll start with a question I love asking people when I'm on this side of the table.
Right.
Kulveer, tell me something about yourself.
Fantastic. See, I'm on the journey exploring myself. I started my career in 1999. Joined Asian Paints, and I call Asian Paints my first professional institution. There I learned about the professional world. And as far as HR is concerned, my beginning of the career was having the whole gamut of HR, where I was taking care of everything, right from recruitment, PMS, employee engagement, whatsoever was given to me. And I got the opportunity moving from, say, consumer goods organization to biotech, then manufacturing, and now engineering organization, which is manufacturing auto component. For a couple of years, I had been professor with Symbiosis and heading executive wing for 1 year. That gave me the opportunity to do consulting with some of the best organizations in India, like Mercedes, Skoda, Volkswagen, etc., etc. So more than 30, 40 such organizations were one time was my client, because Symbiosis gives you the opportunity to do consulting as well.
Okay.
So it's pretty interesting. And as of today, what I enjoy the most, along with my full-time role with Uno Minda, where I'm group talent development head, is visiting campuses and mentoring the students, especially at MDI and IIM, as you rightly said. IMI is another institution where I quite regularly visit. And some of the best platforms like ISTD India, especially Mumbai chapter, UBS Forum. So they do call me in their conferences where I do share whatsoever little I have accumulated in the name of HR wisdom.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sure that it's not little. You're very humble. So thank you for that answer, Kulveer. I think you did a better job of introducing yourself than I did. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's head to the rapid fire.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So we'll start with the first question of the rapid fire, Kulveer. Tell me about a moment in an interview that you can recall where your impression of a candidate changed completely in one moment, and this could be good or bad.
Absolutely. So it was the time when I was working with Premium Transmission and elsewhere known as Greaves Cotton. So I was there in the panel of interviewers. What I found, like one of the candidates coming from Premium Institution, looks wise he was quite shabby. He was not well kept, and the way he gave the introduction of himself, we started forming the impression that probably we have shortlisted the wrong candidate.
Okay.
And we were interviewing him for strategy department. After 3 minutes, when he started talking about data, the kind of picture he started creating with the help of data, accuracy of data, and his uncanny ability of creating the whole picture of the industry where he was looking for the job with the help of data, that was amazing. And hardly took a minute's time, and his perception for the candidature was totally changed. That was amazing.
Okay, that's super interesting. So I think just trying to generalize that a little bit, and even in my experience, candidates who talk more numbers and less narratives, is that a good way to look at sort of generalizing this, and is that a good takeaway for people when heading into their own interviews? They should focus more on numbers and less on narratives?
It depends on two things. One, what kind of role they're applying for. If numbers, data crunching, data analytics is primary KRA of them, then absolutely yes.
Okay.
So if I am recruiting a designer, probably I'm not focusing more on numbers. I'm looking more for creativity. So you are right. It depends on the kind of role we are interviewing the candidate.
Okay. That's
so there is no straightforward answer to that. It depends on role.
Okay. I think that's perhaps an even more interesting thing to think about in terms of how what you're saying in the interview relates to the role, and that's, you perhaps want to tailor how you answer questions depending on the role you're interviewing.
Absolutely. That's very, very important.
Okay, great. Kulveer, moving on to the next question. Specifically about L&D and growth, candidates early on in the interview process who ask about growth opportunities or what the organization will do for them to learn and develop, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's perfectly good. It speaks about like this person is keen about his learning, his development. And I always give extra marks to that person who is talking about learning and development in the beginning itself. It speaks about that person wants to grow with us.
Okay.
And it's perfectly okay.
Okay.
Only one more thing I want to share with you is this. Around 20 years ago, 25 years ago, candidates were not so candid asking about learning and development.
Okay.
But with the inclusion of Gen Z, you see, these people are very, very evolved in comparison of 25 years ago, the way candidates used to put forward themselves in interview. And today when Gen Z we are interviewing, they straightforwardly ask, what's in it for me? And how my career ladder is designed and what all I'm going to learn with you. So it's perfectly okay.
Okay. And just being devil's advocate for a minute, is there ever a situation where that leaves a bad taste in terms of maybe coming across as somebody who's not going to be stable in the role that they're interviewing for?
With me, no. I always take such kind of questions from my candidates in the positive light only.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing most people would love interviewing with you. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Kulveer.
Thank you.
We'll move to the next question. Since you've been in L&D all of these years, I think you're very well positioned to answer this. So what is a common trait that you've seen amongst all exceptional learners? And how can job seekers today both develop that trait as well as demonstrate it during the job seeking process?
I believe this is one of the best questions. It's going to be one of the best questions of this podcast, because whatsoever role you are being interviewed, if you are able to display that you are learning agile and you want to learn more, you are going to be loved. You see, like we are living in the VUCA world. It may surprise you to know by 2023, more than 45% of the skills and competency required in your present role will vanish. What does it mean? That what you know today may not be useful tomorrow. Hence, we always look forward to a guy who is learning agile. Couple of things. What Lominger is known as the father of competency mapping in the world. He gave 5A formula in order to see that whether a person is learning agile or not. First of them is ability. Ability in terms of how much that person is updated and upgraded in his field for which he is applying. Second one is agile. How fast that person moves from one field to another and comes back to the core of learning. So ability, then agility and ambition. How much ambitious is that person? When a person is talking about what more you are going to give me, when he's talking about what juicy projects he is going to take from this role, so it speaks about that person is a great learner. So agility, ability. When I talked about ambition, then one more important thing is alignment. So alignment here means like how that person is aligning variety of knowledge to one core subject. So these are a couple of things which Lominger spoke about, with the help of which you can see that person is learning agile. And so that's the most important thing.
So learning agility is what you would say that it should be the top skill for anybody to develop, as top trait for somebody to
absolutely, because as of today, as I shared with you, like your KRA, what you are having today, 45% of the skills are not required tomorrow.
And if we were to very quickly define learning agility for our audience, it would be the ability for somebody to learn something, or
is partially correct. How fast you collaborate with other people in order to understand the crux of what you want to learn. So your ability to collaborate, your cognitive ability, how much cognitive load you can take in what lesser time. That's also talking about learning agility. So learning agility is the total sum of your collaboration power, cognitive power, and ability to maneuver from one subject to another.
So it's a bit more nuanced than what I said.
Absolutely.
Awesome, excellent. Any tips for how people can get better and become better learners?
Absolutely. Like whatsoever field you have chosen for yourself, only ask two questions to yourself. Am I updated on that field? Am I learning the best as of today? And do I know what's going to happen in my field tomorrow? So updation is very, very important, and upgradation. Today you have acquired knowledge of this level, tomorrow you have to acquire of this level, and day after tomorrow you have to acquire this. So all the time you are prodding for the latest and the best in your field. And that's not tough as of today. Like technology has been so advanced that most of the knowledge is there at your fingertip. So that's possible to be done. So update and upgrade continuously.
Excellent. I think that's a great tip. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next question.
Sure.
This one I think should come across on a slightly lighter note. What is the biggest interview red flag that you've ever seen? And this is besides the obvious ones.
So generally, when I see a candidate, he speaks more about his organization, how great is the organization, how great is the team, how great is the place, rather speaking about what he has done there, what impact he has created there. So that's a red flag for me, because how I decipher this answer of the candidate, like that he is trying to take the leverage out of the reflected glory of the organization's brand and the place brand. He is not talking about what he has done. So that's a big red flag for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if I were to say the same thing in another way, it would be sort of taking all of the credit and giving out all of the blame. Would that be the same thing?
Quite close. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll move to the next question. So what, in your experience or in your opinion, is the most overrated interview question that is often asked? And what do you ask instead of that question?
Yeah, Raghav, one question which is overrated and cliche as well, that is, tell me about yourself. So my question to the candidate is this: like what brought you to the field you have chosen to work in, one. Second, how do you keep yourself motivated every day to work in this field for say 5 years, 10 years, whatsoever number of years experience that person is bringing.
Okay. I do apologize for starting with that question in that case. Tell me about yourself. I did it very intentionally because it's a bad question to answer, but a great question to ask, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right.
We'll move to the next question, Kulveer.
Yeah.
What is the most impressive thing that you have seen on a resume? Or perhaps more generally, what are examples of impressive things that people can put on their resume? And how can people make their resumes more impressive without necessarily going to an elite institution or joining an elite company? What else can they do?
Distinctively, one resume comes to my mind. I have scanned not less than 1,000, 2,000 resumes recently. We were selecting a design engineer for our R&D center. And that guy used around 20-25% of words and number and around 70-75% of the sketches he made. For example, he won marathon in 2017. So he was first in that marathon. So he made a very small, beautiful sketch with all the details. And this is how everything what he was showing on his resume was with the help of a sketch, and it was handmade.
Okay.
So that resume is still there in mind. I can see that resume today. So whatsoever strength you are having, that strength should be reflected in your resume. Is the most important thing. And how distinctively, how clearly you are able to display that thing, that's your ability.
So Kulveer, again, if you allow me to push back just a little bit,
Right.
While that resume might be very memorable, in today's climate where ATS softwares are so popular and so common and almost every company is using them, is it a wise idea to try and stand out with your resume that way in terms of the resume not being so software friendly?
You're right. I agree with you. Like as of today, when ATS are becoming more sensitive with the help of machine learning and AI, probably his resume is not going to be shortlisted even. But if you want to display that ability of yours, so at the time of interview, you can present that piece of paper. Like my resume has been shortlisted screened through your screening process, but actually I'm feeling happy to present this resume to you.
Okay. And
so that can be done.
Okay. So in your view, it's not a bad thing to have one resume to sort of get through the initial screening, initial round, and then another for further advanced rounds where you want to perhaps maybe discuss different things or show different things.
Right.
Okay. Excellent. We'll move to the next question. Kulveer, since you are a visiting faculty member at multiple elite institutions, I think again you're very well placed to answer this question. Between a fresh MBA student and somebody who's just done an executive MBA with maybe after 5 years of experience, let's say you're hiring for a role where you could consider both candidates. Both of them would be eligible. What would be the pros and cons of one versus the other?
Nicely placed question. So last year I had been at the campus of University of British Columbia there in Vancouver. I was there in Southern Management Institute, which is one of the elitist institution in the world for management. What I found surprisingly, and in contrast with Indian institutions, naming so say IIM and other elite institution, there they prefer recruiting, like organization, they prefer recruiting people, those who are doing executive MBA. So I got the chance to talk to the dean, and he told me, Kulveer, they are putting double the hard work. On one hand, they're dispensing their duty for 8 or 10 hours every day, and they are coming to us on weekend doing their executive MBA. And I got the chance to talk to some of the participants. I found that it makes sense. And since then, like I'm little biased now. I say like if somebody has done executive MBA, I would prefer that person because he's talking about harder he is working, one. Second, he's learning agile. Working guy, most of the time having family and doing executive MBA from a college which is very, very rigorous is making him or her out from the crowd. So I would prefer going for executive MBA rather a full-time MBA.
And do you see the sort of mainstream perception of executive MBAs also improving in India specifically? Since the example you gave was from
Yes, it's
Vancouver?
improving. It's improving. Secondly, you must know one thing, like in IIMs and other elite institutions, say SP Jain, Jamnalal, Bajaj, etc. If you see the demography of their fresh MBA candidates, so you would find like 75% of the candidates are having either 2, 3, or 4 years of experience. So straightforward from your engineering college or other graduation college to landing to these elite institution is tougher now in India. And in USA, you cannot apply for full-time MBA if you're not having 2 years of full-time work ex with you.
Yep.
So that perception is changing in India as well. You're right, Raghav.
Okay. So in today's day and age, you would encourage anybody considering an executive MBA to absolutely go for it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Great. That brings us to the end of the rapid fire. I had fun in that segment. Thank you, Kulveer. We'll move to the next segment.
Sure.
So this one is going to be a hire or pass.
Okay.
In this segment, we'll give you some scenarios, and we'd love to get your take on what would you hire that candidate or would you pass that candidate?
Sure.
Good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we'll start with the first scenario, hire or pass, the unlearner. So this is somebody whose resume has a diverse set of short to medium term stints. So it's very clear that they have an ability to learn quickly, but it's also clear that they unlearn just as quickly and are very willing to move on to something. Is that a strength or a weakness in terms of the ability to learn but also unlearn?
It's a big strength as of today.
Okay.
It's a big strength.
Okay. And does it not concern you that they're a little bit jumpy, moving from role to role, trying to pick up new, the shiny thing syndrome? Is that a problem or no?
Raghav, the responsibility also lies on the organization to keep that person in your organization for the longer period. It's not always the candidate which we should scrutinize why he's jumping.
Okay.
Maybe the culture of the organization was not great.
Okay.
So I would love to give some time in order to understand why he was changing position.
Okay.
So otherwise, in general, the kind of scenario you have given to me, I would love to hire this person.
Okay. I think I said this earlier on in this podcast as well, but I think most candidates would love to interview with a guy like you. Great. We'll move on to the next one.
Right.
Hire or pass, the fresh grad. So this is somebody who's a fresh graduate. While your opening is open to fresh graduates, so he's eligible. It's very clear that they don't necessarily have the skill set. However, they are enthusiastic. They're super enthusiastic. Hire or pass?
Hire. Because
Okay.
I firmly believe that will to do something precedes over the skill you possess.
Okay.
So will over skill. And since you said this guy is enthusiastic, it's talking about his will to learn. And training somebody on something is not at all tough. But inducing that will to somebody is really tougher.
Okay. Amazing. Again, another example of why people would love to interview with you.
Thank you.
We'll do another one. Hire or pass, the late bloomer. So this is somebody whose career perhaps did not start on a great note. Maybe they were not with great companies or didn't go to a great school. But lately you're seeing an uptick in their career trajectory. They're getting better jobs. You can kind of see the impact in their work of late. Hire or pass?
Hire.
Okay.
Why? Because we have got many examples where people started their career late, but they produced fabulous results.
Okay.
Like if we see from the point of view of entrepreneurship, Colonel Sanders, he started his chain of food known as KFC at the age of 63. And KFC is there in more than 50 countries, 60 countries up today. And Boman Irani, he started his career quite late in movies, but he's very successful. And I have seen such kind of cases in industry as well. If person is showing willingness to produce results, even if he is entering late, for me, he or she is a big yes.
Okay. I think it'll be interesting to take the inverse of this.
Right.
So somebody whose career started on a great note, maybe they went to a great college and they had a great first job, but you're seeing that the last 2 stints are perhaps not as impressive as they might have otherwise been.
Right.
Hire or pass?
if initial stint of him is talking about success and recent one not, then there is something must have happened in their personal life. I would like to understand that situation.
Okay.
If I get convinced that there was something disturbing on personal account, I won't mind hiring this person.
Okay. So another hire.
Yes.
Amazing. I would say this one is not so much hire or pass, but maybe investigate.
Absolutely.
Excellent. The next one, hire or pass, the ethical dilemma. So this is a candidate who in their previous organization perhaps committed some sort of an ethical transgression. That said, during the interview process, they've been super upfront about it. They told you about it themselves, and they've told you that it's something that happened once and it won't happen again. Hire or pass?
I praise the honesty and the courage of telling that this is wrong, something happened, but on ethical ground, no compromise, pass.
Okay. Okay. I think that's even with other HR leaders who we've asked this question to, I think that's kind of emerged as a common theme.
Yes.
There are some lines which just can't be crossed.
Absolutely.
The last question for this segment, and this is one that I personally like, the relentless negotiator. So this is somebody who's cleared the interview rounds. You like the candidate, they're a good fit for the job. The only thing perhaps which might hold you back is that they're relentlessly negotiating the comp package. And when I say relentlessly, I mean they are sticking their ground. Hire or pass?
Two aspects I would like to further investigate. One, first of all, what is my budget? And second, like, if this person is negotiating so hard, what special he is bringing to the table?
Okay.
If negotiated sum is justifying the value what he is bringing on the table, I would like to hire him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to evaluate
Yes.
what this person is asking
Yes.
for versus what they might bring to the table.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And in general, what advice would you give to candidates with respect to negotiation specifically? How should they do it? How often should they do it? How much should they do?
They should be very assertive in negotiation because you must know your value and you should get fair value of your talent and your experience. You should negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there ever a time where you should learn to stop, or sort of what are signals that they can pick up on that hey, they might be reaching a point where they've got everything that they could get and they should stop negotiating?
It's a big art. Like when you are negotiating for salary, you must see certain signs like this is the point which can be make or break kind of deal for me. And if you need that job, that role, that location, that position, so you should stop there.
Okay.
Sometimes what happens, like the kind of profile you are going to get, there is a lot of learning hidden. So that time you must not negotiate much about salary.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So if I'm sort of to take away from that, it would vary from situation to situation and person to person.
Right.
Your mileage may vary in terms of how much you want to negotiate, but as a general principle, go for it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. Kulveer, I again had a lot of fun in that segment.
Yeah.
It's great that I think 4 out of 5 were hires, except the ethical dilemma, which is great. Great news for candidates. I hope there are many more leaders like you.
Are you struggling to hire talent? At Weekday, we have built a database of 80% of white-collar workforce with their email, phone number, resume, and salary details. And you can send automated email plus WhatsApp plus call sequences to them. Yes, we call candidates on your behalf as well. Because India runs on WhatsApp and calls, we end up getting as high as 40% response rate. Gone are the days of sending a LinkedIn invite and waiting for days for someone to accept. Just use Weekday. Whether you are looking for a database to supercharge the productivity of your recruiters, or you're looking at a complete AI recruiter to do everything for you, we have a solution for you. Visit weekday.works to know more.
Kulveer, let's move on to the final segment for today, deep dive. Over the next few, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes, would love to sort of talk specifically about the journey that you have been on over the last almost 3 decades. I'm sure there's a lot to learn and I can't wait to get into it.
Please.
Good to go?
Please.
Okay, amazing. So Kulveer, starting off, broadly, what has changed over your 3 decades in HR?
Oh, a lot. say like from physical to virtual we have become over the decade, over these 3 decades. From buddy to bot we have become.
Okay.
So earlier we were getting buddy, then now we are getting bot to answer our general question. And from touch to tech we have become.
Okay.
Earlier we were getting the personal touch more at the workplace, and now technology is assisting us. I'm not saying what's right, what's not, because it's a demand of the time. Lot has changed. 2 things distinctively which have affected our workplace, especially in HR, are one is technology and second one is demography.
Okay.
So when I say demography, I want to give one data to you. In India, by 2030, millennial and Gen Z putting together, they will be constituting around 52% of our workplace.
Okay.
Whereas 30 years ago, this was not the number. And when millennials are there and Gen Z is there in such a great number, you can expect how future of work would look like. So a lot has changed in 30 years, as I shared with you. So one thing is technology. I was surprised to know last year I was reading the Economics Times, and one of the news caught my eyes. It says like we have recruited, like Google says, we have recruited first 100 engineers without any human intervention, direct intervention.
Okay.
Right from screening to giving the offer letter and pre-induction, everything is done by bot.
Okay.
So for a guy like me, who used to see jobs in Ascend in Times of India and Hindustan Times, and used to send type letters to the headquarters, reaching to the stage where no human intervention is required directly is a great change for me.
That's super interesting. I wasn't aware of that news.
Yeah.
But to sum up what you said, technology
And demography.
Technology and demography.
Yeah.
And in terms of the day-to-day, I'm assuming the fundamentals remain the same. It's still about people. It's still about processes, about culture, about how to get people aligned and sort of give them an environment where they can do their best.
Raghav, very deep question you have asked so easily. It reminds me of a book called The Third Wave, where Alvin Toffler says like high tech will never be able to replace high touch.
Okay.
So wherever emotions are concerned, wherever creativity is concerned, you need human touch. And these are never changing, never replaceable things. I believe so. And they are still there and will be there, howsoever intelligent machines we are going to install at our workplace. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So now that we've got that bird's eye view of what's happened over the last 30 years, I would love to know why you specifically chose HR all those years ago.
Yeah.
So as I said in the introduction, you started as a chemist.
Yeah.
And then post B school, I believe in 1999 is when you started in the field of HR.
Yeah.
So why did you choose HR then?
Yeah.
And what has your journey been like over the years, specifically with HR?
Thank you, Raghav, for asking this question. Like being chemist, I was dealing with the science behind the matter, and that gave me the opportunity to interact with people as well. So I was self-reflective and introspecting, which is the right field for me. Though I was putting my heart into chemistry, I am BSc honors in chemistry, but I realized that I love human interaction. I love guiding people. I love helping them. And that was the time when I decided to go for full-time MBA in HR. So from material science to human, that exposure I got at Asian Paints. And my inclination towards human conversation and all, that brought me to HR.
Okay. And now that you've spent 25 years in HR, when you look back, I'm assuming you look back with a sense of satisfaction. You made the right decision then?
More than satisfaction, I'm totally contented. That was the best decision I ever made in my life.
Okay, amazing. That's great. I hope many of us get the chance to look back at a decision like this and be happy with it. So Kulveer, now that you've spent so much time in HR, would love to get a sense of what are all the aspects of HR that you've had direct exposure to, that you've worked directly with. If you could just give us a sense of that.
Right. So right from recruitment to performance management system to employee engagement, then succession planning, succession management, high potential management, learning and development, and leadership development. So these 7-8 areas I had that direct interaction throughout my career.
Okay. So I think it might have been a better question to ask if I had asked, what have you not done in HR? You might have had a
Comp and
shorter
ben.
answer.
Comp and ben is
Okay.
something like which I haven't done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you, Kulveer. What I am very interested in is how has talent acquisition specifically changed over your 2.5 decades in HR?
A lot. So once again, there are two aspects in TA, talent acquisition. One is technical aspect,
Yep.
and other one is where human interaction or human intervention is required. So tech aspect is changed to a great extent. Like screening of all the resume is done through a machine.
Yep.
Things are coded. Most of the places, like I said, it is done through machine only. Fine. Then we are having assessment in the form of psychometric or aptitude tests. They are also done through net. What do we call that? Online.
Yep.
Okay. So earlier we used to have paper pencil kind of test, but today it is done through net. But certain things, once you want to dive deep, for example, like if I have to screen somebody deeper, then I have to conduct BEI, that is behavioral event interview, where I want to have a deeper understanding of the person, what he has done, and how he is going to work at my workplace. So BEI is something I believe coding can be done, but as of today, to my knowledge, coding is not done to conduct BEI. One. Okay. Second, intuitively, sometimes you come to know about the candidate, like whether he's going to be fitted in our culture or not. For that, you can't design questionnaire. You see ease and unease in the eyes and the body language of the person in order to see when you speak about your work culture.
Yep.
So that kind of intuitive decision making probably can't be done through technology. So in the space of talent acquisition, tech part has replaced the mundane job which we used to do earlier. That is taken care by machine. And intuitive part, understanding human being deeper, that is still with the human one. So that is not changed and probably is not going to change for several decades coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I'm very interested to know, sort of, because you've worked with multiple organizations and having spent so much time, I'm sure you would have come across different approaches to talent acquisition.
Right.
And every company may even have their own approach to it.
Absolutely.
Could you just talk about some of the approaches that you've seen and what you've seen generally has been successful and what has not?
Yeah. So Raghav, we have to further bifurcate this question, like different organization, different approaches. One, same organization for different level of employees, different approaches out there.
Yep.
For example, for the top, probably, I don't know, like on camera it is right to say or not, like sometime having the network and poaching people is the best approach.
Okay.
You know, whereas at lower level you are going to have some systems which are suiting to the masses. Now, if we talk about organization to organization, tech organization, it is bit easier because there you are going to see the functional competency, whether person is knowing, say, SQL, Java, set kind of languages, and which can be tested with the help of any tool which is online available. Whereas if you are going for, say, designing, R&D, preliminary screening is done with the help of test, but then screening has to be done through deeper questioning and deeper understanding of human. As of today, what I know, all these software kind of organization, 90% of the time they're relying on online type of questioning and they're shortlisting the candidates and it's working in their favor.
Okay.
Whereas in biotechnology or manufacturing, that reliance is hardly 20 to 25%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 75% of it in companies which are maybe in a space like manufacturing is still I wouldn't say sort of gut and intuition based, but human judgment. There's a fair amount of space for human judgment in terms of what they like in a candidate and what they don't like. It's not as objective as perhaps some other skills.
Right, Raghav.
Okay. Thank you for that answer, Kulveer. I want to talk a little bit specifically about the auto component manufacturing space, since you've spent a lot of time with a lot of different companies in there. What's the role of a talent acquisition person specifically in an auto component manufacturing company or a similar company? And I think it's also an interesting question because in the previous answer you said that talent acquisition changes depending on the role you're hiring for, the company that you're trying to hire for, even the hierarchy, the level in the hierarchy that you're hiring for. So would love to kind of know what is the life of a TA person like in the auto manufacturing space.
I want to take a step back here. When we're talking about auto component, where I have spent more than now 10 years, what I see now, since the technology has played a disruptor's role in auto component. Now you see EV is going to grow by 5x in coming 3 years.
Okay.
It means what? IC engine is going to be replaced by that. If IC engine is replaced, then you see the KRA of many of the engineers that is going to be changed. Earlier, we were looking forward to automobile or mechanical engineers. They were in high demand. Today, we are looking forward to electronics engineer. That's becoming much more sought after field where we want people from. With the advent of EV and other technological disruptions in auto component sector, the role of TA guy is becoming tougher because talent is limited. So if I talk about autocom company, top 5 companies, they are having around say 30-40,000 white collar people. The pool of 30 to 40,000 white collars available, and you have to pick and choose from there.
Okay.
And it's making their life very, very tough. Like TA job is very, very tough. So you have to have the best platforms, hiring platforms with you. Number one, you have to have the best consultants with you. And you yourself should have a very good kitty of participants available with you so that you can pick and choose for the future. A TA guy in auto component is going to be successful only if that person is having access to the dormant talent available in the market. When I say dormant talent, like a woman who has gone for the break, now available once again to come back for that job. One. Second, somebody who was a great R&D person, got retired somewhere, but ready to work for you. So if TA guy is having access to the dormant pool of talent available, probably is going to be more successful.
So a follow-up there, and I think this could also generalize to other sectors. TA becomes more and more challenging when a space is being disrupted. So because EVs coming in, perhaps the skill profiles that you need are changing. So the TA people have to keep up.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. I think shifting gears just a little bit, because you are a faculty member at elite institutions. You have also been a part of campus placement drives.
Yes.
I would love to understand for people in our audience who might be sometime soon appearing for an interview through their campus placement. How do you deal with interview anxiety at that stage, and what would a leader like you suggest they do to be able to perform better during their interviews?
So from my point of view, when I'm interviewer, so my job is to find the best in an individual. So I interview people and I create the atmosphere where interviewee is feeling safe with us. And secondly, if you talk about from the participant point of view, what you have, display that only. Please do not try to fake any knowledge, any skill, any competency, because outsmarting an interviewer is not possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not possible.
And what about anxiety and confidence and sort of these things, right? Like how important are they, and how much do interviewers index on things like these?
Fine. So we understand that anxiety is the part of appearance in interview, and these students are also very smart. They do their mock interview sessions, not only with their peers, along with their faculty members, and some of the institutions are hiring consultants also to prepare them for the main interview round. So anxiety is a common thing, and little anxiety is required to give the best answer. So make anxiety your friend. Don't be afraid of that. And as far as confidence is concerned, think which you have learned and applied, you are going to be confident about that thing. So whatsoever you have learned, please do some prototyping on that, do internship around that, do some project around that, and you are going to be very confident in the interview. Only knowing the theoretical concept, you are always going to have a speck of doubt on yourself. So convert that knowledge into some sort of skills. So that will give you the confidence.
Okay, great advice. Another question I have is around the gender diversity ratio in organizations, Kulveer. From what I hear, it's an area of focus for a lot of large organizations.
Right.
What I am interested in knowing, and this is both for campus placements, those hiring drives, as well as lateral hires, does the gender diversity ratio of an organization create bias when it comes to selecting fresh entrants?
To be honest, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
a bombshell.
yeah. So most of the TA guys, they have given the targets.
Okay.
Okay, like by 2030, we want this sort of diversity.
Okay.
And in order to fill in those numbers, we have to be biased that time.
Okay. And is this supposed to be a secret, or is it okay for sort of job seekers to be aware that
It is, yeah, it's both things, like bit of secret, but it's open secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anything that I'm assuming that as a candidate who's applying to a job, there's not much that I can do to sort of boost my chances if the company is sort of looking to hire people from a specific background or a specific
Right.
segment of the population.
Right.
There's not much that I can do, right?
Right.
It's out of my control.
Right.
Excellent. Do you think there's space for companies to be more transparent and upfront about it?
Yes, there are companies and there are colleges, like if I talk about one of the colleges, that is Cummins Women Engineering College, they're in Pune. So they are having 100% female candidates, and some of the companies, they spot that campus because they are going to get more number of diversified candidates from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think coming specifically to what your day-to-day is like, and how that sort of generalizes across the industry, because you work in manufacturing, and it's not often that we get to speak to somebody who works in manufacturing.
Okay.
What does hiring, and let's talk about corporate roles. So what does hiring for a corporate role for a manufacturing company look like? And when I ask that question, I mean, let's take an example of any one corporate role that you've recently hired for.
Right.
How does the opening get created? Who's responsible for filling that opening? How do you typically source candidates? How do you screen them? What does the interview process look like? And maybe some numbers at each stage of the funnel.
Sure. So Raghav, if we talk about corporate openings,
Yep.
So they are created in two ways. One, if that organization is expanding, so you have to hire more number of people for you. So this is how corporate jobs are created. Second, like if somebody has left,
Yep.
and attrition is still quite high in India, because India is growing at the rate of, Indian economy is growing at the rate of 8.3, 8.1% as of today. And manufacturing is contributing the maximum towards that. So still we are expanding, and that's creating jobs at corporate. One. Second thing, most of the evolved manufacturing organization, they attempt to fill the vacancies within the organization.
Okay.
So corporate is sitting at the superior position, higher position, but there are so many superior candidates with those who are distributed in your manufacturing domain or business-wise places, and they are always on our radar. Like those who are high potential employees, they are always on our radar. So we try to fill in our position with the help of these bright people, so that other person get the chance, and when his position is vacant, then person who is below him get the chance, and this is how we are able to provide a better career to each and everybody. So the best way for the evolved company is fill in the position within.
Okay.
I know some of the companies, I'm not naming them, more than 95% of the position in their corporate, they fill within the organization.
Wow.
Yeah. Only 5% of the jobs they bring to the market where super specialization is required, or something new has come, some new role is created, then only they go to the market to seek the candidate. Otherwise, they're filling within only. And corollary of this answer of mine is this also. If any organization is hiring from outside, it means either their succession planning is poor,
Okay.
or they are not having proper leadership development in their organization at pace. So most of the organizations having the combination, evolved one, skewed towards the candidates in the within the organization, and those who are evolving organization, they have to go to the market.
Even if you're hiring from within the organization, that vacancy is being created somewhere, right? So let's say I am looking to hire or I have an opening at the president of sales level, and the vice president of sales is then sort of hired for that role.
Right.
In that case, the vice president of sales position is open.
Right.
So ultimately, when there is a vacancy and a company does decide to dip into the market, I take your point about it being great
Right.
from a culture standpoint, from a people growth standpoint, that you try to lift people internally.
Right.
But when you have to dip into the market, now let's talk about that situation. How does a company in a space like yours do it? What are the channels that you use to source candidates? Then how do you screen them? If you can just walk us through that process.
So Raghav, you are right. Like when you are saying that ultimately vacancy is created and it reaches to the bottom of the pyramid, which is quite heavy. So dream of any evolved company is my GET graduate engineer trainee should be uplifted within a year or two.
Okay.
So if that vacuum is being created down, so that is filled by the bottom of the pyramid where a GET or MT management trainee is sitting. So they also get promotion, they also get growth, and everybody on that career ladder is getting the growth. So it should reach up to that level, and it reaches to that level in our organization.
Okay. So you are saying that that's the ideal scenario.
Ideal scenario.
I think fully on board with that. What about situations where that scenario doesn't pan out for one reason or the other? Like you gave the example that some
expansion is there or some unique role is being created.
Exactly. So how do you typically go about filling an opening that you have to dip into the external market for?
Yeah. So we have on board some good consultants in the market.
Okay.
So we are not having our own big team which is doing screening and all. So this job has been given to the market. Second, we have got certain access to certain portals, and their screening is being done with the help of some keywords.
Okay.
And soon we get some profiles with us, and we go about that.
Okay. Just so that our audience has a sense of how competitive it is to get into one of these jobs, is it possible to share some typical numbers for example, if you're hiring for one of these roles, how many profiles do you go through to close one hire?
Depends on various factors. Like if I talk in general for manufacturing, it depends on two basic factors. What is your EVP, like employee value proposition, how well you have marketed that, and what is your brand value in the market. Okay, so I give you one example. Google is employing around 1.2 lakh employees. Every year they are getting around 1.3 lakh resume without publishing a position.
Okay.
So it speaks about the power of brand.
Yep.
And same is true with manufacturing. Like openly if I say like Tata Motors, one of the greatest employer in India. So probably if you are having a position there, the ratio is going to be very, very high. For one position, you may have 500 applications. Whereas if some organization is poor on EVP, probably they get 50 or 40.
Okay. So if you do a good job with EVP and your employer branding,
yes.
If what I am gathering is right, then sourcing doesn't tend to be a problem for such organizations.
Perfect.
They don't have to necessarily spend a lot of effort in terms of gathering that pool of candidates to choose from.
Perfect.
Okay, so for an organization like this, screening then I'm guessing becomes the problem.
Yes, yes.
How do you see screening being solved? And I think, especially from the point of view of a candidate, what can they do to sort of boost their chances and sort of help them come out on top in that screening process?
So Raghav, as you know, like screening is done most of the time, it is done through machines now. It is not done by human. Only for higher position, human intervention is there. Suppose we are recruiting some VP or GM for some position. Otherwise, for masses, screening is done basis your keywords. So what competencies are required for that position, and does your resume reflect those competencies?
Okay.
So that becomes very, very important. So one is competency, other one is kind of educational qualification and certification. Sometimes certifications, they become very, very important, like certification on Scrum. So
Okay.
that is the prerequisite to apply for a certain job. If that is not reflected in some resume, so he's or she is not going to be shortlisted. So you should choose your keywords, especially with education and competency and skills, very carefully, because that is the primary screening of your resume.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you recommend that candidates customize or tailor their resume as well when applying for a position?
Yes.
Keeping in mind the keywords that may
Yes,
be
you're
relevant?
right. You're right. Otherwise, it's not going to be shortlisted.
Okay. And that doing just that much will give them an edge in terms of their resume being surfaced by the
Shortlisted.
ATS.
Yes, you're right.
Typically, I'm assuming that that is then followed by a recruiter calling them up.
Yes. Yes.
What is generally the objective from a recruiter's point of view of that call? And I think that is, for most candidates, for most people, that is the one touch point they have with an HR person before actually going through the interview process. And
Right.
so I know that there's a lot of anxiety around that call that candidates face.
Yeah.
So would love to understand what is going through a recruiter's mind when making that call, and how can sort of candidates take that into account to ease their own anxiety and do a better job of getting through that.
So when recruiter is making a call, he or she is having second level questionnaire ready in his mind or her mind. They are checking from which company that person is coming, because recruiter knows the level of organization where he has to be placed, like candidate has to be placed. So he or she should come fairly equal size of company. If he is coming from very big company to very small company, then he or she may have the culture shock in many ways. So recruiter is knowing and recruiter is also having certain inputs from a TA guy. Like we are looking forward to a guy who is having at least these three qualities.
Okay.
So that time this recruiter is also testing those three qualities,
Okay.
For example, if I'm recruiting somebody in mass comm, so I must ask the person, a recruiter must ask the person what all media houses you are in touch with, in order to see that whether this person can handle the media houses with which we are working as of today. So recruiter is having 2 to 3 inputs from TA guy, and first call is made in order to see that whether this person qualifies that or not.
Okay. And is there any way from a candidate's point of view that they can sort of get an idea of what those inputs might be and answer accordingly? Does the JD help them understand that?
JD, yes, one source point, and understanding the organization. Understanding the organization, like what space, what size, then what philosophy, what culture this organization is displaying. So knowing that persona of the organization is very, very important.
Okay.
Very, very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, if I can just sum up, tips would be tailor your resume, include keywords.
Yeah.
Get on top of the pile in the ATS.
Right.
Get a call from a recruiter, and then before that call, make sure you study the company, study the industry, study the JD, and get an idea of what the company might be looking for.
Perfect.
Excellent. Typically, now talking about interview rounds and the process thereon. Again, from a candidate's perspective, I know there's a lot of anxiety every time for every single interview round. Could you give me a sense of, in your space, again, what are the ratios like? How many people are taking the first interview for any given role versus, let's say, you have to make one offer? How many people are you interviewing for that one offer?
Raghav, once again, it depends on the level you are interviewing people for. Is it for junior level, mid level, or senior level? So I'm not speaking about my present organization, but generally for junior level, it may be 7 to 8 candidates for one position. Mid level, say 5 to 6, and senior level, it may be 2 to 3.
Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So the higher up you go, the lesser competition there is in terms of lesser people are actually in the running for that job.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So it's the junior people that have a bad bargain there. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. So I think 7 to 8 is, if that's the ratio, that's perhaps not as bad as some people might think.
Right.
And if it's just 7 to 8 people that you are competing with by the time you get to the interview,
Right.
I would say you have a pretty good chance of sort of clearing the interview and getting the job.
Right.
Any tips you'd give candidates, generalized sort of general tips that candidates can do to prepare for interviews, to ace interviews? I asked a version of this question earlier, but in case there's anything you'd like to add.
For interview, I have got a framework which is called 3x3. And this
Okay.
framework is very, very simple. You speak about 3 prominent KRAs that organization is looking forward to.
Okay.
You speak about 3 initiatives you have taken in the past matching to these 3 KRAs. And you speak about 3 impact area where you created the impact in the past in those 3 KRAs. So 3 by 3 by 3, and you are going to win the interview.
Okay. Is this your own framework?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's a great framework.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking out time today and answering all of our questions. Before we wrap, I have one last question for you. What are 2 pieces of advice that you would give, something that you've not shared so far? One for recruiters or HR professionals early in their career, and another for early to mid-career professionals who may or may not be in HR.
So those who are in HR fraternity and especially in TA space develop the ability to read between the lines. Sometimes you reject certain profiles just by saying superfluously what is written there. Reading between the line is very big ability. Like what that person had been doing, what kind of qualification that person is having. It is written on the piece of paper. But you should look at his or her hobbies which are complementing those skill set which are required. So reading between the line is the ability which every HR personnel should develop.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I find that very interesting. So you're saying develop a gut
Yes.
and sort of have the courage to step outside the sort of grids and rules a little bit when it's merited.
Right.
And how about for early career professionals who maybe are not in HR?
See, the most interesting thing in the beginning of your career is try your hands with in various fields without having the fear of failure. I believe like initial 4 or 5 years, you should be very, very experimenting with your career. After 5 years, you should pick the area of specialization. You should not fix the area of specialization in the beginning itself. 4 or 5 years, do experimentation and see like what you like the most, where your passion lies, and don't think much about what you are getting from the job. Find the place where you get the maximum joy from that profile. That's the most important thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I find that very interesting, and I'll tell you why. I've seen a lot of, especially early career professionals, try to reverse engineer an outcome.
Yes.
That, hey, this is where I want to be in 10 years, so these are the steps I need to take. And the advice that you're giving is completely contradicting that.
Absolutely.
So don't try to reverse engineer anything.
No.
Follow your heart
No.
and see where it takes you.
Yes. Because that thing you are going to do for 25 to 30 years. So investing 5 years in order to find where your passion lies is worth spending, worth investing rather. You must invest that much time and find the place what your heart longs for.
Okay. Amazing. Amazing advice. Something that I wish that I had gotten. So that's great advice. Thank you, Kulveer. I think we'll wrap here. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm really thankful that you took out the time today on a Friday evening to come down, sit with us, chat with us, and share your insights. You've been very generous with your time. You've been very generous with your anecdotes, with your stories, with your advice. So really, thank you a lot. And I'm looking forward to this episode going out, and I'm looking forward to all the value people will get from it. Thank you, Kulveer.
Thank you very much, Raghav. And I believe even a single piece of advice which is going to help any of one who is watching this podcast, my time investing here is fully utilized. Thank you, Raghav. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kulveer.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming on.
Thank you.
Are you looking for a job? You can 8x your chances of getting one by using Weekday. How 8x? By doubling the chances on 3 fronts: referrals, customizing your resume, and applying to double the jobs. Weekday can help you on all 3 fronts. Did you know that you can double your chances of getting a job by asking referrals? You can do that via Weekday by just one click, where people can give referrals to the existing companies via the Weekday platform. The second one is customizing your resume for every role. Did you know that 60% of the applicants of a job are never seen by a human recruiter? You can double your chances by customizing your resume based on every job posted. Well, it's not feasible to do that. You can do that via AI. So Weekday's Chrome extension allows you to customize your resume for any job. The third front is applying to double the jobs. Imagine if there was an easy apply on every careers job posted everywhere. What we allow via front-end automations is that you can just click once and no need to fill multiple long forms on every careers page. Give that information to us once and utilize it everywhere else.